Hi, my name is Rizwan Mahmood. I'm a security and compliance expert with eSafe, and today I'll be taking you through how schools can comply with privacy legislation and mandatory data breach reporting using eSafe compliance. Let us start by having a look at some key requirements of the privacy legislation. The privacy legislation and mandatory data breach reporting fundamentally require the need of a data governance tool that can identify and protect sensitive student data and provide clear visibility in the event it is breached. eSafe compliance is the technology response which forms an integral part of the overall policy and procedural response required to address the privacy legislation. In a school environment, the key data that needs to be secured is student information. However, it is not any student information. The legislation uses the words data that can cause serious harm to the individual once breached based on a reasonable percent test. This usually relates to information like medical information, phone numbers, address, parent, personal phone numbers, etc. Basically, information when leaked can cause serious harm to the individual. As such, a teacher working on a document which only has student name and ID wouldn't constitute as something that, if leaked, can cause serious harm to the individual. It is important to understand this point as you need to scope your key information. Further, if you notice, the wording states data that can cause serious harm, meaning it is implied the school should know the content of the data that has been lost. As such, visibility is key, as without clear visibility, you will not be able to ascertain this fact. And in case of an investigation by OAIC, it can be argued that as you don't know which data is lost, as such, all data can be considered as being breached, which can be a serious scenario to be in. Now, to assist organization with this legislation, what OAIC has done well is to come up with a guide to securing personal information. This is an important piece of document because OAIC states that they will refer to this guide when doing its investigation on whether a school has complied with its personal information security obligations or when undertaking an assessment. The guide talks about 9 compliance areas. Some of the initial compliance points talk about having the need for proper governance mechanism and training of users in handling of sensitive information. They also talk about relooking at internal practices and procedures in handling sensitive information. ICT security and access security are areas that I'll be covering later in my presentation. Further, if you notice, OAIC has included third-party providers and cloud computing as a compliance area. I know many schools use Google Docs, Google Calendars. Many schools are moving to Office 365 and as such use OneDrive. The challenge here is if the data is accessible from user home PC and if his PC is compromised, the school can be held liable for the breach. Similarly, if there is a breach of the third-party supplier's network, the school can be held liable as well. Basically, the responsibility of protecting data when using third-party providers has been made the responsibility of the school. Further, the guide talks about the need to destroy or de-identify the data when it is not required. This includes all data stores being held within the school network or outside on cloud shares and personal devices. Lastly, the guide talks about the need of following some security standard. They haven't mentioned what security standard to follow, NIST, ISO, etc., but they have said to follow some established security standard. Now, let us look at some practical ways of how eSafe compliance can assist in ensuring compliance to this regulation. We will start from the visibility angle and create some potential risky scenarios and showcase how eSafe compliance is able to monitor the information leaving the school environment. In order to demonstrate this, I have a file containing sensitive student information. This file has been exported out of student management systems such as Synergetic. As you can see, this file has student emails, names, medical information, student government numbers, birth date. As such, can be classified as being sensitive. eSafe uses these parameters to do targeted monitoring of sensitive content. This is an important point to understand as this ensures privacy of users going about their daily work and also reduces false hits. Now let us create some risky actions. What I'm going to do is I'm going to send this file to an SD card or a USB stick. I'm also going to send this file to my iPhone. Why an iPhone? Because these are all the new ways of how data gets transferred these days. And if I lose a mobile phone or an SD card or a USB stick, you need to know exactly what data was present on those devices. Now, as OAIC has mentioned the importance of monitoring cloud-based storage, I'm also going to copy this file onto my OneDrive. And similarly, to make a point, I'm also going to copy this file to my Google Drive account, which I have installed here. Now, these were some of the offline means of data transfer. Now, let me do some online means of data transfer. What I'm going to do is I'm going to dump this file to the online variation of Dropbox. Basically, it can be any online encrypted website. ESEF is able to monitor movement of information to all encrypted and non-encrypted online channels. Another example of these online channels is, for example, Gmail. So I'm going to attach this file to my Gmail, some content. And send. Now let's make things more interesting. Up till now we have been monitoring movement of sensitive files, but ESEF is not only able to monitor files but is also able to monitor pure content. And to prove this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy some sensitive information and paste it in my Gmail account. And send that across. And last but not least, I'm also going to print this file. Printing is one of the most common forms of data leakages for all industries. People print files and forget about them. They have to be monitored and governed like any other form of channel. Now let's look at how ESEF monitors and reports on these risky behaviors. The way ESEF works is very much like an antivirus system. It has an agent installed in each device. At the moment any sensitive data of value is moved to non-school defined sources, it detects and reports it to an online server. This server can be hosted in the school, or you can use our cloud option hosted in Sydney. Now before we look at nice graphical screens representing the risky behaviors I have done, I want to show you the forensic analysis screens showcasing the level of detail the software is able to capture. Now this is important, as the privacy legislation talks about determining whether serious harm can happen to the individual. As such, we need to know exactly what is lost. ESEF does exactly this. Now let's look at some of the initial actions I did. Initially, I moved the information to SD cards, Google Drive, OneDrive and iTunes, which has been reported here. Now let's look at the level of detail that has been captured for these hits. Let's take iTunes as an example. Clicking on the iTunes will showcase full detail of the potential breach. Here I can see full date, time, username, file path, and more importantly, the content from within that file that was detected. Using this information, we can ascertain whether this constitutes as something that can cause serious harm to the individual. ESEF can monitor sensitive information using multiple methods. For example, here we have used student emails. We can also monitor based on sensitive words such as medical words. Apart from that, there are multiple other methods that can be used to classify sensitive information within ESEF, such as directly connecting to student management systems and classifying information from them. Now the way ESEF reports this information is exactly the same for all different channels, whether it's USB, cloud or any other channel. For example, let's look at the USB transaction. Here you can see exactly the same data. We can see the date, time, user detail and also the content of the information that is breached. Now moving on, I also printed some sensitive files. In case of printing, ESEF will detect the actual printer that was used for printing along with the full detail of the file that was printed, including its content for evaluation purposes. Now let's look at the email example. Instead of looking at the file attachment example, let's look at the content example. As you can see here, this is the content example. There is no file reported here. More importantly, eSafe will analyze the content even if encrypted and report it to the server. Further, as you can see, the report contains full detail, date, time, name, subject, etc., which has been reported. It is important to mention here that the only reason this data is detected is because it is classified as being sensitive. Any other data that doesn't fit the criteria is not monitored, ensuring user privacy. Now lastly, let's see the online Dropbox example. Again, it will look exactly the same with all the relevant information for investigation purposes. Now these were the forensic analysis screens which are used in case of an investigation. However, this is not how you look at the risky behaviors on an ongoing basis. The way you look at the risk on an ongoing basis is via nice graphical reports which will get emailed to you. These reports are generated based on alerts as and when an event happens or based on a schedule. As you can see, these reports are generated in Excel format, purposely done for ease of use. They represent the risk coming from various channels in nice graphical fashion. For example, clicking on cloud transfers will show me complete details. Username, the department he belongs to coming from the Active Directory, and the app he has used to transfer the data. And clicking on the hits will showcase full detail, name, department, TC name, date, time, and the file that is transferred using this channel. Important to point out here that eSafe has the ability to exclude transfers being done using school-based systems. This ensures data is only reported when it is moved to non-school sources, ensuring low false hits. This is how eSafe compliance can provide governance of risky actions being taken in the handling of sensitive data and provide clear visibility in case of a breach, even if it is via encrypted channel. Using these reports, the school can strengthen the governance and training procedures for its users. Now, eSafe doesn't only stop at providing visibility on potential breaches. In fact, it also provides means of protecting their data using encryption. OAIC recommends using encryption to secure personal information. In fact, OAIC has stated under the recommended steps for securing personal information that if the data that is lost is secured using industry-grade encryption and you can prove it, then that is not considered as a breach. eSafe does exactly the same. The moment any sensitive data is created, it gets encrypted and it is depicted with green triangles. Now this is persistent and transparent encryption, meaning if this file is moved to a USB, iPhone, Gmail, Dropbox, whatever method, it always remains encrypted. Users need eSafe agent with the relevant credentials to open this file. As such, even if the file gets lost, stolen by malicious hackers, sent to the wrong person, it always remains protected and secure. Further, it is transparent, meaning if I open up this file, it directly opens up for me. I do not need to provide any username, password, import any certificate to access the file. The file directly opens up for me. Basically, users can continue their work like normal without any change of user action or process. Basically, the entire process is seamless and invisible to the users. However, like all organizations, schools also need to interact with this data outside of school environment. For example, teachers working from home. How can that be done? eSafe provides 4 options for this scenario. First option is for teachers who like to work from home using their home PCs. We have an encryption only version available without the monitoring elements. Think of it like a PDF viewer and writer. It allows the users to interact with sensitive information seamlessly in their personal devices. And as there are no monitoring elements, they can be rest assured that their privacy is being maintained. Second option is we also have viewers available for Windows, iOS and Android users. Users can simply install the apps on their mobile devices and can access the information seamlessly in a secure fashion. The third option is to package the document, and the fourth option is to remove encryption by giving a reason, which I will showcase to you shortly. Basically, I as a user can right click on a particular file and package the document. The system will ask me for a password, and by producing the password, the system will produce a password protected zip file to be sent to third parties. Now the fourth option is that I as a user can also remove encryption completely. Obviously, as this process will expose the data, the system will ask the user to provide a reason. These reasons are reported and can be audited as and when required. Now, important to point out that who has the power to package and remove encryption can be controlled based on user properties within the system. Lastly, as mentioned earlier, OAIC recommends encryption, but the schools will have to prove that the files that were breached were actually encrypted. eSafe provides special features to fulfill this requirement. It is known as real-time file versioning. Basically, if I make a copy of this file, you will see that the encryption follows. eSafe maintains the version history of where the file having this content is coming from. Now, if I pass this file to John passed this file to Mary, I'll be able to track all the different versions of this file present in the school network or outside of the school network, even on their home PCs, on their personal devices, wherever. And once I know what device or user has been compromised, I can simply go in the system and disable that device, and all the data present in that device becomes locked and de-identified and cannot be accessed by anyone. The same can be done in case of staff turnover. Once a user is disabled, all associated information either stored in cloud drives, home PCs, wherever becomes locked and inaccessible to him. In summary, this is how eSafe compliance can easily help to protect sensitive school information using a targeted encryption approach and provide clear visibility in case it is breached. Thank you for listening in today. I hope this session was fruitful in providing you with a practical solution to the requirements of Privacy Act and mandatory data breach reporting.